you, or if you're looking at the monitors. Especially, I would ask everyone to join in, please. Let your voices be heard. Brothers, because some of the sisters prefer that their voices are not louder than the brothers' voices, please raise your voices louder so that we can have a communal Ziyarat Ashura together. We can call on to Imam Al-Hussain together. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah alladhi la ilaha illa hu. Badi'u as-samawati wal-ard. ذو الجلال والإكرام وأسأله أن يتوب علي أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. We perform ziyarat of Imam Hussain, the ziyarat known as Ziyarat Ashura, on behalf of the Imam of our time, Imam Al-Mahdi, peace be upon him, on behalf of our parents, our families, our friends, our loved ones, those who have recently lost their lives to enemy aggression, those who are still victims of enemy aggression, on behalf of our fellow Shias all around the world, on behalf of our fellow Muslims all around the world. In the name of Allah, most beneficent, most merciful. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. Assalamu alayka ya ibna Rasulillah. Assalamu alayka ya khirat Allahi wa ibna khiratih. Assalamu alayka ya ibna Amir al-Mu'mineen wa ibna Sayyid al-Wasiyyin. Assalamu alayka ya ibna Fatima Sayyidati Nisa'i al-Alameen. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. Here we denounce the enemies of Abu Abdullah, and we say that we turn to Allah through our distance and through our enmity towards the enemies and the killers of Abu Abdullah and his companions. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاطبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجانة، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. We place our damnation and we ask Allah to forsake every single soul who took arms against you, those who had enmity towards you, those who saddled their horses, those who covered their faces in order to go to battle against you. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم. And now that we've said that we seek nearness to Allah and to you, O Abu Abdullah, through the distance we take from your enemies, through the enmity we have for your enemies, now we seek nearness to Allah through the love we have for you. وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. We proclaim to Abu Abdullah, I'm at peace with who's ever at peace with you. I fight with whoever wishes to fight you. I'm a friend of your friend, an enemy of your foes. Together we say, إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة. وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. We ask Allah to bring us nearer to Him, to give us the maqam of Mahmud, the praiseworthy status before Him because of our love for Imam Al-Hussain. We ask Allah to let us live the life of Muhammad and Al Muhammad and to die the death of Muhammad and Al Muhammad. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. And on this day that we know that even Rasulullah, the Prophet of Islam, would place his damnation and ask Allah to forsake the enemies of Imam Hussain. Everywhere he would stand, everywhere he would sit. On this day we do the same. We place our la'na, we ask Allah to forsake and remove His mercy from the enemies of Imam Hussain. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. We reach the point where we're going to place our la'na once again on the enemies of the Prophet and his household from the beginning until the end. We make the intention right now that as we recite this once, oh Allah, multiply this by 100. For in Ziyarat al-Shura, this is the point where we recite the la'na 100 times. Make the intention that we are reciting this not once but 100 times. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. And we make the intention that the next salam we're going to do not once, but oh Allah, multiply it by 100 times. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم لعن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانة وعمر بن سعد وشمرا وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. Now we place our foreheads on the sajda, to place the sajda before Allah and ask Him for, we praise Allah and we ask Him for the shafa'at of Imam Hussain and his companions. Perform the sajda. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum to everyone, and welcome again as we continue to prepare our hearts to bear witness to the heartbreaking tragedy of Karbala. Tonight, after Muharram, will be the night of the 4th, and inshallah together we can try our best to emotionally and spiritually experience these nights and get closer to Allah and the Ahlul Bayt in the process. Before we begin with our program, I'm going to ask that everybody please move up very much forward because there's a lot of room with a loud salawat. And the same of the sisters, please. If you are seeing that you're very far towards the back, please shift up, please. Thank you. We're going to, as always, start with the recitation of the Holy Quran. We'll bring up Taha Chawla to lead us in that recitation with a loud salawat.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول الله وآله الأطهار صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Let's send one more loud salawat for Ta'a, inshallah. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajr. As a reminder for everyone, for those who want the Farsi program, it's across the hall in the other room, so that will be starting just about now for those interested. Inshallah, before moving on, we want to take a moment to recognize our sponsors for the evening. They are Brother Ahmed Jabir, Sister Zahra Sarafi, and the Abidi family. We ask that everyone here recite a Surah Fatiha for their marhumin and the marhumin of those present. Fatiha. As with the past nights, we're going to have some recitations and poems and short speeches. If you're interested in doing these in the future nights, please let everybody know, the organizers, in advance so you can try to be slotted in. The first is going to be a poem from some poems from Sister Saliha Akil. We'll bring her up with a loud salawat.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Tonight I'm going to read another 2 poems for you. The first one is the same poem that I read yesterday. So if you recall, this is a poem that includes lines from Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday, which is a work that was about lynching in the American South. Southern trees bear a strange fruit. Blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. It is here in these lines where I first learned to honor martyrs, to recall the names of those who were and ask Allah to reward them, the ancestors without whom I may not be here, standing, sitting, speaking. As a child, I learned the names of Emmett, Tamir, and Trayvon. With them too, I learned heartbreak and grief, a leaden weight which I've learned to carry in masajid. I learned the names of Abbas, Qasim, and Hussain. Mourning is a familiar practice for my people who have known so much pain. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. I lower my head and shed my tears. I cry myself noble, call myself broken, open, pray myself into a new day. Ya Allah, help me honor those from whom I came. Ya Allah, help me honor those who saved my faith. Ya Allah, let me be the best as I crawl to you. Accept our dhikr as we crawl to you. Salawat. This next poem includes lines from Take Me to the Water, which is an African-American spiritual. The ancestors say, Take me to the water. None but the righteous shall be saved. Take me to the water. Water is an inorganic, transparent, tasteless, odorless, and nearly colorless chemical substance, which is the main constituent of Earth's hydrosphere in the fluids of all known living organisms. The young daughter of our Imam attempts to let the moisture of her own saliva pool in her mouth. It does not work. She has no moisture, for she has not had a sip to drink in days. Her throat is dry and choked with dust, sand, and the pain of a persecution she does not deserve. She looks to the sky and prays to a God she's known since she was old enough to know anything. Perhaps in return she hears only, "Your reward is with me." Water is 70% of the earth's surface. Water is 60% of the human body. What then is more human than water? And what is more Shia than thirst? The loyal brother of our Imam goes to bring water for the children. He too is thirsty, body weakened, but he fights like a lion. His standard does not waver as he cuts his path. Throat dry, flag steady, bag full. He turns to take the children what he had promised. He is cut, bloodied, mutilated. His bag bursts. He dies, thirsty and fighting. What is more human than water? What is more Shia than thirst? The infant son of our Imam cries, a cracked voice from the dry throat of a child who has done nothing wrong, wailing because he can't understand why he is thirsty, who has taken his water, how he can get it back. He cries, or perhaps would if his body had any moisture left to spare. His mother tries to comfort him in vain. He dies as his father holds him in his hands. Perhaps when his soul returned to Allah, God welcomed him with a drink from a sweet fountain. What then is more Shia than thirst? And who is more deserving of a righteous reward? Take me to the water. None but the righteous shall be saved. Salawat.
That was beautiful. Let's send one more salawat for Sister Salaha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Next, we're going to have a short speech from Ali Hassan Karrar. We'll bring him up with a loud salawat.
أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين. واللعنة الدائمة على أعداء أهل البيت من الأولين والآخرين من الآن وحتى قيام يوم الدين. آمين رب العالمين. One of the most important aqaidi questions that we have in the school of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam is the question, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have a body? We find in our current times specific sects of the religion of Islam, specifically the Wahhabis and the Salafis, try to push an agenda that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a body. However, we see that within this phrase itself, it has a lot of different connotations, and one of them being the dissolution of the religion of Islam itself. For if we believed in this, it would mean that the religion of Islam itself could not exist. So inshallah tonight, let us take a look at two simple proofs that show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot have a body. And if He did have a body, this would mean that the religion of Islam was wrong, with the following few steps. Number one, what is the first proof? And how does it talk about the proof of infinity? Number 2, how does the second proof mention about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be confined by His creation? Inshallah tonight, let us discuss this topic with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. On the first level, we must understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinite. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a being that's infinite. So when we say, or when they say that He has a body, this means that something finite and not infinite can contain this infinite being. For example, this water bottle. This water bottle is something finite. It's not unlimited, and it's not infinity in any matter. However, what they're saying is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being the infinite being that He is, can be contained in something limited. That's like saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be limited into this water bottle here. Right now, if I said that bring the oceans of the world, which is something that is still limited, and contain it within this water bottle, would you be able to do it? No. Why? Because something that is greater than the container itself cannot happen. So if I want to now contain something infinite and something finite, this cannot go forth. And this shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot have a body. For if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the infinite being Himself, can be contained into a container Himself, that means that He's not infinite, rather He is limited. And that's why when you ask them and you tell them this, they say, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His body is not like our body. The body of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is no way like our body. We cannot imagine it. However, by saying He has a body, this means that it's a container. Same way that I say, for example, this body of mine, it's a container of my soul. So when they say that He has a body, this means that He contains the being of Allah, which we said is wrong. And the second proof shows, and it's more complicated because it shows the intricacy of this claim. Of course, a body means 3 things. A body means that you are controlled and limited by 3 things. The first being matter, the second being time, and the third being space. When we have a body, this body is made up of matter, and the body is in space, and also the body is controlled by time. Give me an example. Sure. Right now, my body, for example, is made up of, for example, 70% water. Right now, my body has matter. And also, my body is in space. Right now, I'm standing before you. And then the third thing is my body is also in time. Right now, at this specific time, I'm here. So if a body comes into existence and there is a body, that means it's controlled by these 3 qualities. Now, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all things. And 3 of the things that He created was matter, time, and space. So this means that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a body, He is being controlled by His creation Himself. The creation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made is controlling the infinite being, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why we, as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim, denounce such a belief, as in the belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a body, means that this being of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must be limited. And that's why we make it clear that this belief is not one of our beliefs. And as we said, this not only means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is limited, but also means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is less than His creation. Of course, in the Hawza, one of the main concepts that we talk about in Aqa'id is this concept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than all of His creation, and that His creation cannot be better than Him. However, here we see that His creation, being time, energy, or time, matter, and also space, is controlling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which of course is batil and is incorrect. So with this, we've seen that not only is this claim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a body is false, but we also have one thing remaining, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran. Many people, when they look at the Holy Quran and take it literal, they see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes a face, describes a shin, and describes, as they say, a body and a throne. And they say that when we look at this, we must take what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, has a shin, we must accept this. However, we see that here, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rather means a metaphor. at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't do something that would ensure that He is limited. No. In the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the Quran is infinite. And the Quran is rather what? The Quran is beyond error. It doesn't have any error. And that means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must be infinite. So with this, we've understood the mawqif, the position of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam in regards to this claim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Let's one more loud salawat for Ali Hassan Karrar. So inshallah, we're going to proceed with benefiting from the knowledge and the wisdom of our scholar, Shaykh Bilal Hussain. We've had him with us the past several nights and have been able to benefit from that presence. In order to have more time for the speech, we're going to skip over some of the announcements. Generally, turn off your cell phones, be with your kids if they are outside, and try to make sure that you're trying to keep things as clean, quiet, and productive as possible. With that said, I'm just going to ask everyone to do one last full shift up before the speech. So everyone please come up with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's a lot of room. I'm going to say about 15 feet of room. Sisters as well, in case I can't see you, but I'm assuming there's some space. Please come up, inshallah. Thank you, Jazakallah khair. Okay, with that said, we'll bring up our respected Shaykh Bilal Hussain with a loud salawat.
رحم الله من يقرأ سورة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد. صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ذلك ومن يعظم شعائر الله فإنها من تقوى القلوب. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat for ta'jeel faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المسائب آل Muhammad. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating the difficulties of Ali Muhammad. We've been having a discussion around building a virtuous community with the understanding that this is a need of our time and a need of our society. We've mentioned the goals that we want to build as a community that is a proof towards Allah, a community that points to the leadership of Ahlul Bayt, a community that defends Islam, and a community that is an exemplar in society. Yesterday we spent some time to talk about the goals of the individual, that as an individual I'm someone who needs to have sound faith, and to develop that sound faith I need to build a relationship with the Quran. I need to build a relationship with the Ahlul Bayt. I need to follow the Sunnah. I need to learn my ahkam, practice my ibadat,
and have a steadfast nature. It's a big list. But the amazing thing is there are tools for us to accomplish this goal. It's not enough that simply there's a projection of an idea of what we want to achieve. There are tools and resources that help us achieve this goal. The idea of having tools and resources, or having tools that are the alat, the support system to build something like this, is not unusual. As a matter of fact, the verse that we began our discussion with from Surah Al-Hajj, verse number 32, where Allah says, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَذِّمْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. That Allah says, in this verse, He says, and whoever respects the signs of Allah, sha'air Allah, this is surely is the outcome of the piety of hearts. مَا هُوَ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ. Sha'air Allah, the symbols of Allah, are those tools and items that remind us of Allah, and therefore they build taqwa in our hearts. They build our connection with Allah. Meaning that even Allah gives us the ability to rely on resources that are available to us to get closer to Him. And that sometimes these resources were very easy to understand, and it made a lot of perfect sense, and it was very straightforward that you would look at something and recognize. For example, you guys want an example? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It happened once that a group of people from the time of the Prophet, I don't call them companions, they were sitting there talking, they were talking about Fulan bin Fulan, dhahaba ila Sin, went as far as China and came back and had great treasures from what he had traded there. And they were discussing and debating all the great treasures that he brought back and how much of an amazing amount of wealth that he had. And Rasulullah, listening to this, became frustrated with them until eventually a man walked in and he says, you are talking about those treasures. This one here has earned more reward with Allah today than anything that can fill the heavens and the earth. So seeing the excitement of Rasulullah and the azamat of what this person attained, they went and they asked him, what did you do today? He says, actually I didn't do anything. He says, actually this morning when I set out, I intended to go take care of some business and I was late. I didn't take care of my business. He says, but when I couldn't take care of the responsibility I intended, I remembered a statement of Rasulullah where he said, looking at the face of Ali is ibadah. So I left my path to go see Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, and this is what Rasulullah is referring to, that what I have earned by the ziyarat of Ali is greater than anything that could be earned in the heavens and the earth today. So, meaning the example of Ahlul Bayt, looking at Ahlul Bayt, the loving of Ahlul Bayt became one of the tools by which we attain taqwa and piety and proximity to Allah. Similarly, there's the entire discussion around, for example, Inna Safa wal Marwa sha'air Allah. Do you know why this discussion happens in the Quran? Because the Hajj is not something that began with Islam. The Hajj had been being done from the time of Ibrahim. So much so that even the polytheists adopted and practiced the Hajj. So when Rasulullah implemented the laws of Hajj and the process of performing Hajj, the pagans of that time had put idols, one on top of Safa and one on top of Marwa. And they would walk between these two idols and they would worship the idol whenever they would walk between them as they performed the Hajj. So now when Rasulullah prescribed the Hajj and gave instruction to perform Hajj, the Muslims, some of them, came back and they said, why are we doing what the pagans do? Why are we behaving like the pagans? And here Allah answered them and said that they do it for whatever reason they have. You do it because I commanded you. And that this became one of the, today it's the Muslimin who are doing this action. The Hajj of Ibrahim continues. Meaning that there are tools that Allah appoints to that are His symbols and guidance for us to follow to attain proximity to Him. And that using tools to grow in religion and to develop the identity of Islam is not a problem. As a matter of fact, it's something necessary. So the same way that, for example, Allah describes and says that the tools that Allah, the sha'air, the symbols that He appoints are something that will grow the taqwa in your heart and show the taqwa that you possess. The same is true of the tools that we need as we want to build a virtuous community. Now, some of these tools are physical entities, and some of these tools are concepts that when we work on these concepts, the reality of the community becomes to take shape in front of us. And those concepts are very important. That if I want to develop all these good characteristics, I can either go through the checklist one by one by one by one and try and find these attributes and list them out and behave in this way. Or two, if I focus on some of bringing these tools which are easier to work with in the actual concept itself, I can attain the goal that I've set out for, and I can build a great community. So as such, we'll mention 3 goals, 3 tools that we have conceptually, and then the resources we build to make them happen. With your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad. The first of these tools that you need to possess, you want to build a virtuous community? First tool that you need is the ability to talk about and dissect and understand faith. Now, I have to explain this. This is going to take, okay. You guys good? It's going to take a minute. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you guys stop the salawat, I stop the speech. I'm just letting you know right now. That's how the system works. There's a system in place here. What's the difference between faith and Islam? There's a difference. And today especially, people abuse that difference between these two. Now people say, I'm faithful, but Islam, or I'm spiritual is the other one that they have. Or I have faith in God, but don't ask me to do this other stuff that you guys want me to do. So one of the important attributes is when we say have the ability to have a deep dive into and understand faith, it involves the concept of understanding ma huwa hadha al-iman. What is this iman? What is this faith? Can faith exist outside of Islam? And that entire conversation that comes about is something that we understand that these two elements of faith and Islam are tied. But faith does not exist outside of Islam. I can't say that I'm faithful to Allah if I haven't first come to the process of Islam. I need Islam first, and then the next phase comes in. Which is why we see the statements of our 5th and 6th Imam where they explain, Al-imanu iqrarun wa amal. وَالْإِسْلَامُ إِقْرَارٌ بِلَا أَمَلٍ. That Iman is something that builds on top of Islam. Iman in its entirety, to have faith in Allah, is to possess the ability to, 1, trust and to announce and to profess and to act. But Islam is simply to profess without action. The relationship between these two, someone came to our 6th Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Salli ala Muhammad wa. My apologies if we move forward as well too. One more time. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Someone asked our 6th Imam about this exact fact. And he said, can't it be possible? I mean, there are some really good people out there. Aren't they faithful? Aren't they faithful? And Imam Sadiq says, no. To explain this, he says, let me ask you something. And Imam Sadiq presents the example of how to understand this. He says, if you saw someone in Masjid al-Haram, if you saw someone in the precincts of the Kaaba, could you say he's in the Kaaba? The person was like, Akid la, you can't say that. He's inside the Haram, but he's not inside the Kaaba, right? But then the Imam goes further. He says, but if you saw someone inside of the Kaaba, could you say he's inside of the Haram? The person says, yes, certainly. Imam Sadiq explains that this is the relationship between faith, Iman, and Islam. That Islam is like the Haram, and Iman is like the Kaaba inside of the Haram. So meaning that faith, when we say someone is a mu'min, has Iman, that Iman has to be within the bounds of Islam. It doesn't exist outside of the bounds of Islam. You can't do it. It's not physically possible. So which is why you can't submit and have faith in Allah, because that involves action. How could you enact the laws of Islam if you don't believe in Islam? How could you truly have faith in someone when you don't do what they tell you to? We would say that that's hypocrisy. It's not physically possible. So hence the concept of having a deep dive in faith and having a deep understanding of faith is something that has to exist within Islam, and it's not possible to have this faith outside of Islam. The beauty of having this deep dive of faith, and it's very important, the reason that faith doesn't exist outside of Islam is that Islam, or our faith, doesn't come from the intellect. You can't imagine and ponder over and come up with the idea of what is Iman. No, you need instruction to know what is Iman. And that instruction has to come from a guided source, not from your brain. You can't think about and come to the conclusion that, yeah, well, you know, this all makes sense to me, so therefore whatever makes sense to me, I follow, and what doesn't make sense to me, I leave. This was the example of Abu Hanifa. There's a story of, okay, let's do a story. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Abu Hanifa makes a statement, Bahlul is sitting and watching. Abu Hanifa says, there are three things that Ja'far as-Sadiq says that I disagree with, that they don't make sense to my intellect. He says, first and foremost, that Ja'far as-Sadiq says that Allah can't be seen. However, everything that exists can be seen, so therefore Allah must be able to be seen and Allah must have some way of seeing Him. He says, the second thing I disagree with Ja'far as-Sadiq is that Ja'far as-Sadiq says that shaitan is made of fire and shaitan will be punished in the fire of hell, but how can fire be punished by fire? It doesn't make sense. And the third point he says is that Ja'far as-Sadiq makes the statement that man is individually responsible for his actions, but how could it be that Allah knows what man is going to do and yet man is individually responsible for his actions? So therefore, it's not possible. Bahlul, hearing these three arguments against Imam Sadiq, stands up, picks up a clod of clay, hits him in the head and runs away. Now Bahlul happens to be related to Harun. So Abu Hanifa goes to Harun and complains that your cousin came and hit me. Harun says, oh, sends out, because Abu Hanifa is a respected personality under the Khilafah. Sends out his guards, they collect Bahlul and they bring him in front of Harun. And I say, Bahlul, did you hit him? He says, let me answer something, let me ask him some questions and then decide if I deserve punishment. So Abu Hanifa says, sure, ask me what you want to ask me. Again, Abu Hanifa is proud of his intellect, that he thinks he can handle this. So Bahlul says, your argument with Ja'far as-Sadiq is that he says Allah can't be seen, and you say that everything that exists can be seen. So what happened to you when I hit you? He says, I felt pain. He says, show me your pain. He says, fool, how can I show you my pain? He says, that I don't believe your pain exists. He says, your second argument against Ja'far as-Sadiq is that shaitan will go to the fire of hell. But shaitan is made of fire. How can he be punished in the fire of hell? Well, Abu Hanifa, what did I hit you with? He says, a clod of clay. He says, what are you made of, Abu Hanifa? It's clay. So therefore, how could it hurt you? It couldn't have hurt you. And finally, Abu Hanifa, your argument is with Allah, not with me. So what do you mean? He said, Abu Hanifa, you said if Allah knows everything, then Allah is the one who is a partner in this affair. And therefore, Allah is the one who makes you do it. So therefore, Allah knew I was going to do it. He made me do it. I didn't do it. Go pick your fight with Allah. Yani, the significance is you can't ponder over Iman with your intellect alone. You need guidance. You need structure to understand faith. If you simply think that I'll think about faith and what makes sense to me I'll accept and what doesn't make sense to me I'll cast away, and Islam has to be something that intellectually makes sense to me, and if it doesn't make sense it's not part of faith, welcome to the club of Abu Hanifa. What am I supposed to tell you? No, this is why we have the instruction, that we are given the instruction, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Why did Allah give us this instruction in the Quran? Why did He give us this explanation? And point to us and says, whatever the Prophet gives you, accept, and whatever he keeps away from you, turn away from it. Is that to understand this Iman, to understand this faith, you need guidance from the Ahlul Bayt, and you have to go back to them to learn how to think about these subjects. Don't imagine that if it doesn't make sense to me in my mind, how could it be true? Once you go down that path, that's the path that shaitan wants you to take, because that's the path he took. Remember something, when we talk about the story of Iblis, Iblis loves Allah, hates you. He has no problem with Allah. He loves Allah. But what he didn't understand is that he thought if his intellect can understand the command of Allah, then he has to follow it. And if it doesn't understand the command of Allah, then he doesn't have to follow it. Right? When Allah says that I'm going to blow a soul into this, and when it comes into place, فَقَعُوا سَاجِدِينَ فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ, then go and prostrate before him. Iblis doesn't prostrate. Allah asks him, مَا مَنَعَكَ? What prevented you from doing sajda to this Adam after I created? Iblis's answer is legitimate. He used his intellect. And he came about and he says, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. I'm better than him. I really don't believe I have to do such that to this guy, because your command didn't make sense to my intellect. Because I am made of fire and he is made of clay, and fire is better than clay. Because he made that mistake and he had pride in himself that he was better, that's what he likes to use on us. He likes you to prefer your intellect over following the command of Allah, because that's what he did. That's the mistake that he made. So which is why the thoughtfulness and the pondering over Islam is required. And as a matter of fact, there is no sect that is more associated with the pondering over faith and learning over the faith than our sect. Which is why we are known as Ahl al-Kalam, the people of discourse and debate and learning on the concept of your Aqidah. Other schools of thought weren't allowed to debate us. Why? Because we actually had intellectual proofs and a thoughtful approach to pondering over Allah, pondering over His commands, pondering over what He has described to us. This is a requirement of each of us, that, for example, one of the ways that you strengthen and have sound faith is ponder over these concepts and learn from the Ahlul Bayt how to apply them. Don't imagine that you can do it yourself. It doesn't work. You need to go back to sources. Don't ever imagine that when something doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means you don't have enough resources to resolve the issue you're facing. And you have to do work about it. Which is why we have a statement that describes to us أَدْنَى الدَّرَجَةِ الْكُفْرِ رَدُّ فَضِيلَةِ الْأَمِيرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The lowest level of disbelief is when you hear the fadail of Ali ibn Abi Talib and you refuse to accept them. Shall I give you an example? Are you guys good with the story? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The fadail of Amir al-Mu'mineen are not things that I wrote or you wrote or society explained. Our Prophet would explain the fadail of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He would tell the people, he says, this Ali of mine can be in 40 places at the same time. And they would say, how is that possible? That's impossible. They refuse the fadilah. Imagine, مَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْحَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Allah explains and says, this prophet of mine never speaks of his own choice. Anything he says, it is but revelation that is given to him. When he turns and he says, this Ali of mine can be in 40 places at the same time, and they turn and they say that, no, we don't believe. Here's the explanation of how they started to have kufr. They disbelieved in the command of the Prophet. So what did they do? They decided, we're going to test. Because it can't be possible. How can one human being be in 40 places at the same time? So 40 of them got together and they said, all 40 of us will invite Ali ibn Abi Talib to our house for dinner at the exact same time. So they each went individually to Amir al-Mu'mineen and said, hey, Tuesday night, come have dinner at my place. I'm saying Tuesday night. They didn't actually say Tuesday night. I'm giving you the example. Amir al-Mu'mineen accepted 40 invitations to dinner. Wednesday morning when they meet, each one comes with the intention of showing to say that Ali came to my house, not to your house. And they came with the idea that today we will disprove the Prophet and say that the Prophet exaggerates in his love of Ali. Yet when they gathered together, what happened? Each one said, Ali was in my house, how could he have been in your house? Understanding this, that if Amir al-Mu'mineen can be in 40 places at the same time, never doubt that when you call out, Nadi aliyan madhar al-ajaib, that Allah will not send you assistance by the name and the barakat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. All of these concepts require research and time, and spending that time to ponder over and understanding that when we make these statements about the attributes of Ahlul Bayt or about the attributes of Allah or about the attributes of the Day of Judgment, their description is there so that we can ponder over it, but ponder over it correctly. And one of the important things that collectively that's necessary is that use this tool to grow your faith. Don't imagine that your intellect is going to be sufficient. Don't imagine I can think about this and solve the problems of the universe. Baba, if you could have thought about it and solved the problems of the universe, in the past 1400 years, somebody would have done it already. Same way, if Islam itself was something that naturally just came to people, there would have been no need for prophets. It would have been just like, hey, people do good things, and we would have said, okay, and we would have been good people. No, the divine revelation came because there's a need for our intellect to be guided, and there's a need for resources, and Allah has created them. And that's one of our tools. The second of our tools, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is the concept of ethics and morality. The second tool that we have for building this virtuous community is ethics and morality. There's a difference between ethics and morality, by the way. Morality is the culture that's taught through belief. Ethics is the structured doctrine of that morality. Is that when it's structured and put into a format, that's when it becomes ethics. Prior to that, it's simply morality of the culture and the good character that we display. This concept of a tool to grow a virtuous community is not something that started now. Rather, it's the tool that our Prophet used to grow the religion of Islam initially. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That this is the best example for you. Our Prophet preached through the concept of character for 40 years before initiating the message of Islam. The same way, the discussion around ethics and morality and perfecting and focusing on ethics and morality is one of the ways that we invite to the path of Islam, which is why we have the statement, كُونُوا دُعَاةً لِلنَّاسِ بِالْخَيْرِ وَبِغَيْرِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ لِيَرَوْا مِنْكُمْ الْإِجْتِهَادِ وَالصِّدْقِ وَالْوَرَعَ. Our Imam explains and he says, act as to the heralds of goodness in the people by other means than your tongues, so that they become aware of your diligence, your ijtihad, your hard work, your honesty and your piety, through your actions, through your character. The development of character in our society and making sure that we always stand by the best of character in our society is one of the ways that we build a good society. You need to rely on this concept to be able to have a virtuous society. And the amazing part is, and this is one of the mistakes that other communities have made, they have ethics amongst themselves, but no ethics outside of themselves. That their honesty is only reserved for them. Their good behavior is only reserved for them. Outside in the world, let me lie, let me cheat, let me steal, your life has no value. And some people have brought that to our religion. Doesn't work that way. Our Prophet was as-sadiq al-amin, the truthful, the trustworthy. Not just with the Muslims, not just with the mu'mins, with all of humanity. Which is why ethics and building this morality is one of the fundamentals of having a good community. How do you build ethics? It's not an easy question. As a matter of fact, there are books and books and books written on the subject of how do you build ethics? How do you build character? I'm going to give it to you in 6 steps. Now, it's not about how great I am and that I boiled this down to 6 steps. No. This is the teachings of the ulama that have been boiled down to 6 steps. That through 6 actions, if you want to improve your character, there are 6 actions you can implement in your life. And if you implement these 6 actions, you can build morality and character. The first of these is to take account of yourself. And make sure that you take account of your actions. Pay attention to everything that you do, good or bad. This isn't something that, for example, is hadith, is new, but as a matter of fact, even if you take a look at people who associate themselves with piety, have a practice of taking account of their actions. If you want to, go home and Google the diary of Isaac Newton. The diary of Isaac Newton shows that Isaac Newton was also somebody who took account of his actions himself every day, of the good and the bad that he performed, and you can actually see his diary and see it in his own handwriting of how he would take account of his actions. 2, focus on reason versus emotion. Emotion will guide us to be immoral. Emotion will generally guide us to prefer myself over preferring accountability, morality, and good character. That whenever I find myself in a difference between something that is intellectually sound and something that I want to do, prefer the action that is intellectually sound, and you will come closer and closer to morality. Because the opposite of morality is often my desire, what I want. 3 is keep good company. Let me explain something to you. Good company is not something that you can you can, but it's not something that generally you'll find through accident, by chance. It's something you have to pray for. Pray for good friends. Pray for Allah to give you guides in your life. Pray for Allah to teach you what it means for you to be a good friend and to have a good friend. It's not an easy concept. you actually have to work really hard for it. The path of the Ahlul Bayt is a very lonely path because there are very few who will stand up to the rigor of preferring what Allah wants over what you want. And to make that easier, one of the tools that we have to have a good ethical environment is to have good company. You can't be in the company of bad people and then be good. It's like stepping into a puddle of mud wearing white clothes. It's not possible for the white clothes to remain white. That's why you need that good company around you. 4, seek istighfar continuously. Seek the forgiveness of Allah. One aspect of the seeking of istighfar is seek istighfar for the sins that you know you committed. Don't delay and say that, okay, we'll do it later. As a matter of fact, culturally, sometimes we have bad examples of this, right? There's a muhawara, there's a saying in Urdu, and I may butcher it. 100 चूहे खाके billi karne chali hajj. That after the cat eats 100 mice, then it goes to hajj. And what happens is that you'll find people and you say, why don't you go to hajj? They say, mere 100 चूहे pure nahi hue. I haven't finished all my sins yet. Then when I finish all my sins, then I'll go to hajj when I'm an old person. That's who promised you life? Who promised you the opportunity that this air you're taking in now, you will have the freedom to exhale it next? It's such a dangerous mistake. The sins that we know, don't delay. Seek forgiveness immediately. Seek forgiveness immediately. And then on top of that, seek forgiveness that what are those sins? What are those people that I've hurt? What are those things that I've done that I don't even know I've done? Don't just imagine that I know my book of deeds and I know what I did. No, I don't know. Which is why that seeking of istighfar is a process of building this morality and this character. 5, reduce the pleasures of this world. If you're constantly just busy and enjoying life and just having fun and fulfilling every desire that comes up to you, how are you going to stand up to a difficulty when it comes? We joke about this, right? Soft people build soft times. Meaning what? What does that mean? That means if you live a life of comfort, when a difficulty befalls you, can you overcome the difficulty? No, it's going to break you. So which is why, reduce the pleasures that you enjoy in this life with the intention that it should be something that will help me focus on morality, that when a difficult decision comes in front of me, I can make the right decision. And finally, is stay in a state of purification and purity. That tahara, nidafa, wudu, these things are a source of protection from us from the indecencies of shaitan. Man kana yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas. That cleanliness is a protection for you that keeps you away from the machinations of shaitan and makes it possible for you to develop morality and have good character. Where shaitan can influence you, it's harder to have good character. Do it as a practice for yourself, and this is one of the interesting things. Start with a baseline. How long can you hold your wudu? Don't answer that, I want to know. Start with it for yourself. Begin your day in wudu and see how long does my wudu last. What are the things that prevent me from keeping my wudu? What are the things that I can do differently? Fine, I can't change my behavior, I can't change anything. Wudu lasts 2 hours and it's 2 hours and 1 minute and it breaks. Okay, fine. Then build into your habit that when my wudu breaks, I renew my wudu. That every time I need to go to the restroom, I renew my wudu when I leave that restroom with the intention that purity is my perfection and is the goodness of my nature, that it will protect me from all the harms. We already do it. They trained us in this about germs and washing your hands. Humanity wasn't great at washing their hands. What happened? We learned that there's a physical harm to not washing your hands. So what do? Anything I touch something different, let me go wash my hands. Imagine if you could build that habit that anytime this wudu leaves me, I reinstate the wudu. These elements are a process of building this ethics, is a part of building this process of akhlaq and character. And these aren't my suggestions. Ulama over hundreds of years have put together these suggestions and structured them so that we better understand how to approach Allah. This is the second of our tools. The third of our tools, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I apologize, but if we can move forward, there's some people standing in the back and I know there's space in the front. If it's possible, just a little bit so. One more time. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. The third of these tools that we possess to build this virtuous community is the significance and importance of education. And that education as a concept is one of the tools that helps grow a virtuous community. If you want to build a positive community, you want those people to be educated. To the extent where our sixth Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam, لو علم الناس ما في العلم لطلبوه ولو بالسفك المهجة والخوض اللجج. Imam Sadiq explains, if people realize the benefits of knowledge, they would certainly seek knowledge even by exposing themselves to death and the toils of the difficulties that come with it. If we could all appreciate the concept of how valuable knowledge is and how important the seeking of knowledge is, we wouldn't have so many of the problems that exist in society. Today, out in the country that we live in, we've seen the difference of an educated population and an uneducated population. And we've seen how easy it is to corrupt an uneducated community. And we've seen the dangers of how people can't identify bad arguments if they're uneducated. They can't save themselves from someone misguiding them because they don't have enough education to be able to differentiate between a good argument and a bad one. Don't undervalue the concept. Listen, I'm not telling you to go out there and become engineers and lawyers and doctors and PhDs. What I'm telling you is that your profession isn't your education. Your profession is your profession. To be educated is a different concept. To be educated is a continuous effort. We've been sold a false narrative that the purpose of education is a career. Who told you that? A capitalistic society? Islam didn't teach you that. Islam taught us طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُؤْمِنٍ وَمُؤْمِنَةٍ. I'm turning over this way too just to say this isn't excluding you in the conversation, this is all of us here together. And that search for knowledge from the cradle to the grave, that's what our Islam taught us. Not that once I have a career and I get a good salary, okay, I never need to go back and look at another book again. But many of us almost think it used to be that people took pride in this. That, yeah, this is the last college textbook I read. It's the last thing I ever read in my life. And then you're done with it. It's not the character of Islam to imagine that education is a responsibility of children. It's the responsibility of every human being to proceed with this concept of learning and learning and learning and educating yourself. The most valuable of these educations is the education about Islam. Is the focusing on these subjects that we're talking about, is going through this process and this effort to know that Allah created me, why did He create me, what's my purpose, and how do I best fulfill the purpose of my creation. That's work. It's something that's important to invest in. Don't take it lightly. To complete these three, right? To understand and have ilm al-kalam, to understand your beliefs, to understand and have a deep dive of faith, to go through and to build ethics and morality, to go out and develop the importance and the interest in education. There are physical tools as well too that are recommended for us to utilize. We'll mention a few of these. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad. I've mentioned it before too, one of the mistakes that we've made is that we've instituted that this is the only source of education for some people. That we talk more about what have I heard rather than what I've read. Understand something, the monologue is not the process of how Ahlul Bayt typically taught. The Ahlul Bayt, when they taught society, it was most often through the concept of dialogue, which is why many ahadith are the result of questions being asked and answers being given, and the instruction that when you receive your answer, go share it with others. The dialogue is very important because it initiates. Right now, I'm assuming that what I'm telling you is useful. I don't know where you got stuck. I can't stop right now. I'm going to keep going. But that dialogue becomes significant in that process. Other than that, there are other tools as well too. For example, the concept of the wasiyah that the Ahlul Bayt would leave. It was a way for them to teach. The du'as that they would teach was a way for them to teach. Ziyarat they would leave was a way for them to teach. The letters they would leave is a way for people to teach and to learn. All of these are different tool sets that don't simply think that, for example, that a monologue is the only way to interact with faith. This, as I mentioned, is the introduction to the discussion. The onus is on you. And there's so many different formats of this communication that's out there for us to be able to go and learn and interact with our faith. It's not one structure. And same thing with the advancement in technology. Your ability to interact with whether it's a lecture, a discussion, a speech is constantly changing and evolving. Don't just watch TikToks because it's a waste of time. I have a couple minutes. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I am so against, and this is my personal opinion, I'm going to correct my personal opinion as I talk to you, so against short form media. I was like, this is horrible. It is literally brain rot. My opinion. Using, for example, certain different types of, I was very much against it. But guess what? When you look back at the history of society, when they started publishing books, people were against books and it became normal. Then they were against magazines, and then magazines became normal. Then they were against TV, TV became normal. They were against internet, internet became normal. They were against social media, social media became normal. Now I find that I've aged to the point where I'm against TikTok. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to become normal. People are going to accept that this is a part of the lifestyle that we live in. And the people who withstand it are going to be very few. This was my first understanding that, yeah, technology is changing and maybe I'm not changing. The second element that came about in this conversation on this subject was the discussion of the fact that, is this platform completely... Now, I'm not telling you to go watch it. I'm just rationalizing with you about the fact that it's a medium. And it's a medium that we're not going to get away from. It exists. Is the idea that, yes, it was built with bad intentions. It was built with the intention of corrupting the stamina, the ability, the patience of being able to watch long-form content, or to be able to read books, or to be able to be a functional person and look for instant gratification and look for the dopamine hit immediately in this entire process. But I had a very good friend who sat with me. He says, don't forget that Fir'aun built the platform to disprove Musa and the religion of Allah, and Allah used that exact platform of Fir'aun to prove his religion. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Meaning, yes, the platform is built for nonsense. But if you utilize it to access good content, it's another tool in the process of learning and education. And the same way, these institutions that we can build as well too, along with these utilizing these resources, they're institutions. And these institutions, for example, start with the concept of the hawza and promoting the presence of the hawza and a seminary in the system of our communities. That seminary is going to be one of the fundamental tools that we need to have the knowledge of all of these subjects and to bring back the knowledge into our communities, to promote the importance of this, and not as an individual effort, but as a communal effort. The masajid and the concept of praying together is one of the tools that we possess to accomplish these goals of education, of ethics and morality, of understanding and faith. This Hussainiyah is a tool that goes through and gives us the access to both being exposed to knowledge and continuing learning, continuing morality and developing morality. This Majlis is one of those tools that gives us all these resources. Understanding all of this, one of the shortcomings that we have as a community is that when we build the tool, we built a Hussainiyah, we built a masjid, the reaction is nothing changed. We want instant gratification. That you put out the tool, you put out the effort. I talk to my kids about morality, I talk to my kids about education, and they're not more educated all of a sudden. We want that we say something, and it's like the wahi of Allah that immediately gets absorbed into society. But even the wahi of Allah did not get absorbed immediately into society. Look at the example of Noah. 950 years he preached. Society didn't change. Don't expect that if you do something good or you initiate the implementation of these tools, you bring morality in, you bring education in, you bring discussion of faith in, that immediately everything needs to change. It doesn't change immediately. It takes time. It takes effort and years of effort. Which is why the example of the Prophet amongst us, the example of the Ahlul Bayt amongst us is 255 years of education consistently being given. How many of us accepted it? Don't expect instant gratification that you did something good, life should all of a sudden be better. That society should all of a sudden change. And which is why tomorrow's discussion in this concept of building the virtuous community is one of the problems and solutions of how do we solve one of the problems of building the virtuous community. Stay tuned. We'll talk about it next. This aspect of doing these actions because they're the right thing to do and building the tools and the infrastructure, don't look for immediate results. Allah didn't give the Anbiya immediate results and they were much better than us. What makes you think He's going to give you immediate results that you did something good today that tomorrow society should change and be better? It's wrong. We think as soon as we do something good, we should be able to see the malaika. I recited Dua Wahda this morning. Where's Imam Al-Zaman? No, it's true. Listen, and it's not just an individual problem. Even when talaba go to the hawza and you implement this process of change, one of the immediate reactions is that I should be connected to Imam Al-Zaman now. And people get depressed. I thought I was doing good. Why can't I see Imam Al-Zaman? I want to meet him. I want to talk to him. That's that egocentric view of the world, that I get what I want when I want. I didn't think about what Imam Al-Zaman wants from me. I thought about who I am that Imam Al-Zaman should want to meet me. Don't implement change with the intention that you're going to see the results right away. You may not see the results of some of the good deeds you do until the day of judgment. You may not see some of the good that you do out for generations from now. You and I, many of us that are sitting here today, are because of the effort that someone made generations ago to change for something better, and they went through ridicule, loneliness, difficulty to bring about change in that family, and generationally, now we see the results of that effort. But always understand something. What's done for Allah always pays off. One of the examples of this comes from the story of Karbala. That goodness that was placed in Hur eventually came to fruition. Remember something. In the event of Karbala, there are a variety of lessons and teachings that take place simultaneously. And one of them is this discussion about both the forgiveness of Allah and the effort that's exerted in teaching about akhlaq in Ahlul Bayt. Look and see that they describe and say that this Hur was known to be one of the bravest men of Kufa, and when he was appointed to take a battalion, take 1,000 men, and stop the path of Imam Hussain. Marching through a desert is no joke. Marching through a desert in full armor is even harder. Hur takes 1,000 men and marches at a pace where they don't stop because the instruction from the governor is stop the path of Hussain ibn Ali. How does this Hur reach Aba Abdullah? They describe and say that one of the companions of Imam Hussain says, Ya Aba Abdullah, we're going through the desert, but I see trees in front of us. Aba Abdullah turns and he says, no, those are men carrying lances coming towards us. They describe and say, by the time that Hur with his 1,000 men reaches Imam Hussain is camped by the water, and these 1,000 soldiers are thirsty because they've been marching through the heat of the sun at an incredible pace to come and cut the path of Imam Hussain. They describe and say that the men were so thirsty that Abu Abdullah commanded his companions, he says, go quench the thirst of each of these men This is the example of morality and character. I didn't look at what you deserved, I look at who I am. Imam Hussain says, whoever this is, whatever their intention is, I know what their intention is. But my character is that if I see someone in a state of thirst and difficulty, that I quench their thirst. They quenched the thirst of every single one of those soldiers, and not just the soldiers, but the animals of the soldiers. They describe and say that the commander of these men had been so thirsty that by the time, because he had to lead the way, if he is weak, then his army will be weak. Hur had that consciousness that to lead these men, I have to be the strongest. So by the time he reaches Imam Hussain, he is in such a condition that they said that he would try to lift the water to his mouth, but his hands would shake in such a way that he could not hold the water to his mouth, until eventually it is Abu Abdullah who comes and quenches the thirst of Hur with his own hands. And then Abu Abdullah asks, why did you come here? He says, I have come to cut your path, O Hussain ibn Ali. This is where you can tell that the education of Hur was not lacking. Why? Abu Abdullah makes a statement, Thaqulat ummuk. May your mother weep over you, O Hur. Hur, known as one of the bravest men, he says, anyone else in Arabia, had they spoken to me like this, I can answer them. But O Hussain, your mother is the daughter of Rasulullah. He holds his tongue. He says, I can't even say anything to you. What am I to say to you? Hur proceeds down this path of making mistake on top of mistake on top of mistake. He cuts the path of Imam Hussain. He prevents him from reaching Kufa. He puts him in a state of difficulty. He allows for an army to amass against Imam Hussain. He allows for the water to be cut from Imam Hussain. He allows for the treachery against Imam Hussain, until eventually the night of Ashura comes and you see Hur go to Umar Sa'd and say, do you truly intend to fight this Hussain ibn Ali? Do you know how he came to that realization? That the actual intention of the battle was the 9th of Muharram. That they came and they put a hujum around the tents of Abu Abdullah. And then Abu Abdullah sent Abu al-Fadil to go and say, give us one night. The intention was the 9th, that we will surround them in one go and wipe them out in one instance. And that one night was given. That one night is the night in which you see that they say that we saw Hur in a state of great difficulty. They said, oh Hur, if anyone had asked us who is the bravest man in Kufa, none would doubt that you are the bravest of Kufa. Then why do I see you shaking in this night? He says, I see before me the choice between heaven and hell, and I should prefer nothing over heaven. The embarrassment of Hur, that education that he possesses, that ma'rifah that he possesses, that how did he ignore it? How did he step away from it? Oh mu'mineen, if you ever become overcome by the difficulties of life, it is but one moment you need to seek the forgiveness of Allah. If sincerely you were to ask Allah just once, not only could He forgive you, He could tie your name to the best of humanity. They describe and say the morning of Ashura comes, that they say we saw Hur being in a state of fear and difficulty. He turned to his soldiers and he asked them, did you water your horses? Did you water your animals? We separated from him, understanding that he wanted to be alone. Eventually he turns to his servant and he says, take this turban and cover my eyes. Take my hands and tie them. His son comes and says, Baba, what are you doing? He says, I'm going to seek the forgiveness of the son of Zahra. They describe and say that Hur approaches the tents of Abu Abdullah as a prisoner approaches the captor. When he comes to these tents, the first to approach him is Abu al-Fadil. What have you come with? What intention? He says, I wish to seek the forgiveness of Hussain ibn Ali. Abu Abdullah replies and he says, oh Hur, I have forgiven you before you have even asked me. Such is the mercy of Ahlullah, of the people of Allah, of the family of Rasulullah. Hur explains and he says, Ya Aba Abdullah, let me present my first sacrifice. It is I who am the cause of all of these difficulties. I do not wish. Aba Abdullah says, oh Hur, forgive me, but we don't even have water to offer our guests. The embarrassment kills Hur in his heart. Hur says, Aba Abdullah, we shall be the first to present our sacrifice. There is the servant of Hur, there is the son of Hur. Hur sends his son into the battlefield. His son fights a valiant battle until eventually the ghubar and the dust rises and the son of Hur falls. Hur goes to proceed to his lineage. He looks for his son, but in the difficulty of an army and a clamor of an army, he cannot find his son. He calls out, oh my son, where are you? It is Aba Abdullah who replies, Hur, come to me, your son is here. Hur comes embarrassed. He says, Yabna Rasulullah, why did you come? I am here. He says, oh Hur, don't you know it's inappropriate for a father to come upon the body of his son in this condition? Oh Hur, who would be that host who would make you carry the body of your own son in this condition? Remember, it is not but hours later that they will describe and say that there is one body. Aba Abdullah tried to lift 50 times and he could not lift. 50 times they write in narration. Until eventually he called out, oh Banu Hashim, come and collect your brother. Today, look at the mercy of Aba Abdullah. I have not only forgiven you, I have given you that honor to give you that respect and dignity. Hur now turns and he goes and he presents his battle, his loyalty, his seeking of forgiveness, that, oh Allah, I have to face Zahra after what I have done. Except for me in the defense of the son of Zahra. Until eventually they describe and say that this Hur, after fighting bravely, falls in the battlefield. They describe and say there's something unique about the ashab of Aba Abdullah. They describe and say that after the events of Karbala, they went to Umar-e-Sa'd and said, oh Umar-e-Sa'd, why did you have to kill all of these men? You killed amongst the valiant of our nation. Why couldn't you have just captured them? Umar-e-Sa'd would reply and he says, silence your mouths. You don't understand how they fought us. They fought us with such sacrifice that we had no option but to kill them, or they would have destroyed every single one of us. In that effort it is that Hur then falls. I imagine that one of the thoughts that this Hur had as he was fighting in this battle is, he would imagine to himself and say, the son of Zahra is thirsty because of me. My thirst was quenched by the son of Zahra. I cannot pay back the honor of that water that I have ingested. How shall I face Rasulullah? Ya Rasulullah, your lineage quenched my thirst and I kept them thirsty. They describe and say that this warrior of Allah falls in the battlefield. And to him comes again the same way that Aba Abdullah did not fight once on the day of Karbala. He fought over and over and over again. That again, when Hur falls, the one who is by his side is this Hussain ibn Ali. And as every shaheed asked, Hur asked, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, are you satisfied with me? Have I fulfilled an oath to you? Have I been honest with you in what I have done? Yes, Hur, you have. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, may I ask you a question? He says, ask me your question, O Hur. He says, I feel as if there are others standing around us. Are there others around us? In the poetic books they describe and say that these sacrifices that were presented were not presented just to Aba Abdullah, but every member of Ali Muhammad witnessed the sacrifices presented. He says, yes, O Hur, I imagine that you feel the presence of my grandfather Rasulullah who has come to serve you water. I imagine you feel the presence of my father Amir al-Mu'mineen who has come to welcome you for this service. I imagine you feel the presence of my brother Hassan. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, something makes me uneasy. There is another presence I sense. Aba Abdullah would reply, my mother Zahra has not ignored you, O Hur. Ya Allah, بحق زهرة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. Oh Allah, by the right of Zahra, by the right of these tears in our eyes, accept this small ibadat from us. Ya Allah, we are those who are overcome with sins. Ya Allah, forgive our sins by the right of this majlis and the right of Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, give us tawfiq to live our lives in the path of Islam. Oh Allah, we have gathered here with hajat. By the right of this majlis, fulfill our hajat. Ya Allah, those amongst our families, our communities, the mu'mineen who are suffering through sickness and disease, give them shafa'ah. Give the mu'mineen, Muslimeen who are suffering through strife and difficulty around this world, aman and sanctuary wherever they may be. Ya Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Matam Hussain.
Ya Hussain, 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 Ya Hussain. Move up. Ya Hussain. Brothers, move up. Ya Hussain. Ya Hussain. Move up, move forward. Ya Hussain. Ya Hussain. Move forward. Hussain. Everybody. Ya Hussain. 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 Allah, look at the heart of Imam 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 Hussain. Everyone, Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. 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 He is the son of Ali and Fatima. He is the grandson of Muhammad Rasulullah. He is the carrier of the purest heart in his blessed household, shining like a star. He has the highest status one can gain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. 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 He spent his life helping the needy. He fed the orphans whilst everyone would sleep. He gave everything generously. He wiped all the tears off anyone who would weep. He is the definition of humane. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. He was so merciful and filled with love. The angels would arrive at his door from above. When anyone faces a test so tough, we ask from our Master, because in him we trust. All of our wishes from his door we gain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. He promised this to the Holy Prophet. He would save us all whenever faced threat. His grandfather cried when Hussain said, this promise I will fulfill if all my blood is shed. I am ready to suffer any pain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. He's standing with no one by his side. Before his sighted loved ones and family have died. His heart is carrying such grief inside, and yet he stands up with so much courage and pride. He's standing covered from head to toe in blood stains. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. No one can understand the pain of Hussain. He crawled towards the place where Akbar had lain. He washed his brother, they ying with no arms. His sons with old Ali Asghar dying in pain. Never through any of these did he complain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain. Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain.
Allah, look at the heart of Imam Hussain.
Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain.
He went to stop a rebel, yet he found a leader in his prayer. Hur found water for his horses, he found kindness in Hussain. Worry began to grow within, Hussain refused to yield. He'd rather stand than give his hand, and that stand would get him killed. He'd rather stand than give his hand, and that stand would get him killed. By the call of Hussain, Hur was freed, Hur was freed. For the love of Fatima, Hur was freed, Hur was freed. By the call of Hussain,
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
for the love of Fatima. When negotiations failed, when betrayal was clear as day, Hur saw that his own side had clearly lost its way. A loyal soldier through his life, Hur feared nothing in this world. But when his orders clashed with truth, such fear began to take a hold. By the call of Hussain, for the love of Fatima, by the call of Hussain, for the love of Fatima. How could he raise his sword against the son of Fatima? He'd have no excuse to give when he stood before his Lord. At the call of Hussain, when he made his plea for aid, Hur saw his final chance and he chased it unafraid. By the call of Hussain,
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
for the love of Fatima. By the call of Hussain,
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
for the love of Fatima.
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
With paradise in sight, his path was narrow as a thread. A single step to either side, and hell would then await ahead. Should he be caught, should he be burned, he wouldn't turn away. Right is right and wrong is wrong, and what is right is with Hussain. By the call of Hussain,
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
for the love of Fatima. By the call of Hussain,
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
for the love of Fatima.
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
With penitence his strength and forgiveness his desire, he broke off from his past and he sought a purpose higher. Hussain then said to him as his body lay there slain, Hur, your mother named you well, for freedom you have attained. By the call of Hussain,
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
for the love of Fatima. By the call of Hussain,
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
for the love of Fatima.
Hur was freed, Hur was freed.
Oh, O Qa'im, stand, our need is strong, calamity great, your absence long. O Qa'im, stand, our need is strong, calamity great, your absence long. Prepare our hearts, prepare our souls, prepare our bodies and our minds, so we may walk this narrow path, so we may serve you when it's time. O Mahdi, son of Hassan, hasten, hasten your return. O Mahdi, son of Hassan, hasten, hasten your return. Ya Hujjat ibn al-Hassan, ajjal ala dhuhurik. Ya Hujjat يا حجة ابن الحسن عجل على ظهورك. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
متوجه زيارة إن شاء الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله وخاتم النبيين، السلام عليك أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك أبا محمد حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا تسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، ومحمد بن علي باقر والنبيين، وجعفر بن محمد الصادق، وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم، وعلي بن موسى الرضا، ومحمد بن علي الجواد، وعلي بن محمد الهادي، والحسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من أعوانك والأنصارك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.